Go.
And we're live.
Hello?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay. Doing the Verhoeven effect, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you
Good to go.
did something get missed? Or are you recording?
Huh?
Are you recording?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been recording for like a minute.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, usually I say that. I just turned it on. I'm some sort of out of it. I was like, I
Just,
don't play entry role on Verhoeven. What am I doing?
yeah, I was just. Anyways, you're listening to Verhoeven Effect, where I'm Conlon,
And I'm Nathan,
and we are
and we just
watching.
woke up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as you can see, Nathan has sunlight in the background. We usually don't do podcasts in sunlight. We're podcast vampires, so it affects us dearly.
Yeah, it's slightly on fire.
Um, We are watching network television because me and Nathan don't watch network television. We are watching the 2000, first aired in 2013 season 1 of The Blacklist, what first aired in 2009 season 2 of The Mentalist, and what first aired in 1985 season 2 of Miami Vice. And as always, we start with The Blacklist. We have season 1, episode 15, The Judge. Original air date March 3rd, 2014, NBC Monday. Red investigates Jolene's life. Liz and Wrestler go after a criminal known as the Judge, who incarcerates the ones that put innocent men away. Showrunner John Bokenkamp, written by Jonathan Shapiro and Lucas Ryder, and directed by Peter Werner.
Yes. This is an interesting concept episode.
Yeah, it's another one of those, like, they find a way to basically make a almost sci-fi
Yeah.
bad guy, but it's just like, you know, but in like an espionage way. So, um, yeah, it seems like something to be like on. Oh no, I completely forgot the show, Supernatural or something.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Yeah, we start off. We have some just scraggly guy walking on the road in the middle of winter with a paper bag. We find out it's Mark Hastings, and he was an assistant U.S. attorney. And apparently, he's been missing for 12 years, and they bring in Donna, his wife, who identifies him. It's like it's been 12 years. Um, and then we cut to Red meets with Lance Reddick, who's I think he's just listed as the cowboy.
Yeah, just sitting in like a 19 what's
70
70s.
something Oldsmobile, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Red calls it out, but like the Lance Reddick character isn't interested in like confirming anything. He's like, "Who do you want me to kill or follow or whatever?"
Yeah, it was neat to see Lance Reddick show up, but he's not a guy who gave up a whole lot as a character. It's just some kind of bounty hunter,
Yeah,
high end bounty hunter, I'm guessing.
yeah. It's mostly style, but it's like Lance Reddick can kind of do a lot with very little. But here he's like, "Give me an Oldsmobile and a cowboy hat."
Yep. All his habits of character.
I mean, it's pretty different. He usually plays, a lot of just like kind of like stickler bureaucrats.
Yeah.
A lot of his stuff. So this is probably fun for him. So it's like, I'm gonna do what I want.
Yeah, yeah. This is almost as wild as his appearance on the Eric Andre show.
Look it up. We
Yeah,
can't
just
say
look it
anything
up.
about
You'll appreciate it. I'm not saying a word. It's terrific.
it. And so Brad wants the cowboy to look into Lucy or to Jolene, who he has a picture of her and it looks like it just cut out of a newspaper, and her name's Lucy Brooks, but she's going as Jolene. Red wants to know where she's been, so he's not necessarily interested in like her getting killed or anything, or he doesn't want her to find her because he already knows she's here. Um, and so and then we cut to Jolene and Tom hanging out at the teacher conference in Orlando, and they're like speaking around infidelity. It's just kind of a clumsy scene. It's like, we're gonna cheat.
Yeah, they're talking about other people's infidelity. Oh, with, like eyes really wide open, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you believe it? And it's like, who would do something like that? It's like, well, apparently you two are getting ready to do that.
Then we come back to the unit, and then they're talking about, because now we're getting back to the guy from the beginning of the episode who just like mysteriously appears after 12 years of missing, and they're blaming it on the Reynoso cartel. Yeah, it's some crime syndicate, but it's not important for the rest of the episode. That's just like that's
just the name.
Yeah. But then Red speaks of the judge, who's basically like some mythical figure who gets justice for injustice. And it's like basically like it's done through like passing off notes and stuff in prisons. And there's like just a network of messengers that get around.
Yeah, and if you really were wrongly convicted, the judge will not, hear your case or do anything for you, but incarcerate the guilty for a equal amount of time.
Yeah, so the Mark Hastings, the guy from the beginning, he put someone away for 12 years. So that's why he was missing for 12 years, because his sentence was up, according to the judge.
Yeah. And these people are completely like mentally deconstructed.
Yeah.
Because they're basically kept in horse stalls for this whole time. And fed gruel, and they develop a strange paternalistic relationship or maternalistic relationship with the judge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're not like coming out like, hey, I was at this farm, go get it. Oh, their brains are just goulash at that point. So
it's some like they're not being beaten or anything, and they're just being basic stuff, and maybe they're told that like, this is why you're here, and they're just supposed to live with that, like, and it's on their conscious, and they just slowly just become mentally destabilized over time.
Yeah, well, it seems to be loosely based. I don't know. I didn't find this fact, but they have a prison in basically in Siberia called the Black Dolphin, and it's for the worst like offenders in Russia, and it's like those kind of cells. It's like it's all like wood and metal, but you can't get out of it, and you're just in there all day. Like you never get out.
Yeah, it looks like they're letting these people out for some R&R.
No, you're just like in the cell.
That's not the right word. Just what do you call that? Just
because they have to go walk around the yard or something.
Yeah. Or is that called rec time or something like that?
I think so.
I can't remember.
It's like the worst kind of supermax.
Yeah.
Because we actually have prisons like this for real, but they're not. They're like big giant cement buildings and.
Yeah, well, you always hear about like solitary confinement, which seems to be like it's a position within a prison, but I don't know the internal stuff. It seems to be like a punishment for people, but like so it's like you're not supposed to put people in solitary confinement for like the duration of their prison sentence, but if they are just basically too dangerous to be around, then like they'll basically be there for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, we have one of those in northern Michigan too. But so what's the most famous one? Like ADX Florence. There's a few of them that are like they're in like the Colorado mountains. Like even if you got out, you're just gonna die. That's why they have one in northern Michigan too. Because if you get out, it's like, well, good luck. There's nothing but winter and wolves, but have fun. Because I think it's actually in the Upper Peninsula. But yeah, there's. Those are mainly like terrorists and stuff, like terrorist like masterminds. Like they end up in the supermax system, and then people who just like murdered every cellmate they had, like those guys live in there too. Which is like, well, shouldn't they be in loony bins? But it's like, oh yeah, we closed all those. So this is what we have. And by the way, housing a prisoner in a supermax, the American way, is very, very, very expensive. Because these prisons are designed as you'd think there were 1,000 people in there. There might be 100 people in there, but the internal security is so tight and bizarre. Like you never see the other prisoners, and it's really weird. It's a strange system, and we're the only people in the world that do it openly, because it puts us in violation of a lot of human rights things. But that's because we do it, and we say we do it, and instead of all the other countries in the world where they do it too, but it's a secret. Yeah, so
State
that
secrets.
yeah, so that's what yeah, that's the thing about America. Like we do a lot of things. It's like, oh, all these other countries don't do it. Like remember when like Russia famously said we don't have the death penalty anymore because that's inhumane. It's like okay, yeah,
But
we believe you.
sometimes stuff happens when
Yeah,
people aren't looking.
I mean, yeah, it just doesn't include the people we like, poison with polonium or nova polonium, not palladium, polonium or Novichok or anything else. That's called extrajudicial killings. That's not part of our legal system. So yeah,
And
but
then
anyway,
also we have special prisons outside of America that aren't held to the standards of
yeah,
America.
and we have secret prisons too that like their names come up, but it's like it says this is a prison. Where is it? It's like I don't know. We don't have that's not in our system, but you find out it's like on an oil rig, an abandoned oil rig or something. It's just like a what they call black sites. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, that's way off topic. But yeah, that kind of long
I
term.
mean, we got to get into vaguely stuff about. I mean, that the stuff we're talking about is like we'll circle around in the blacklist eventually. Like we've already had black site prison stuff. I mean, the post office is one itself.
Yeah, it's a black site. Yeah,
And then we've had him on like some oil tanker that's also a prison too. So
yeah.
this is not. But also like this is probably the this is like the last we'll see of Red till like the end of the episode. I was getting to the end of this and I was like, oh, this is kind of a Red free episode almost. That's why it's not as interesting.
Yeah, because it's just people being earnest and looking for. Everyone's very earnest in this episode.
Yeah,
Even the judge and the people around that situation, like what they're doing on its face is horrible, but why they're doing it is like, well, okay, this is one way. This isn't like vigilante murder, I guess. Well, not yet.
yeah.
But yeah, it's
Or that we know of.
Yeah, or that we know of. It's interesting.
I might get the phrase wrong. I was listening to a podcast with lawyers, and they call it like black letter law.
Okay.
Which is, or it might be something different. It might be law, but a black letter interpretation, I think it is, which is basically your interpretation of the letter of the law, not necessarily how it's enforced or used, but the letter of the law.
Yeah, no alliteration here. What the words say. Originalist. Yep.
And so that is sort of what the judge is like. They're operating by the letter of the law. They have this system in place so that their personal opinions don't affect it. And so it's like, okay, well, you served your 12 years. We're going to let you out.
Yeah.
Like, cause that's what we live by or whatever. So, there is something like that. So like that character ends up being like, okay, they're not just doing this. They're not just, I mean, they're doing cruel things, but like there's a system behind it. And so
No, they're not doing it for kicks. They're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for.
Yeah, this is completely volunteer business.
Yeah. Yeah, no one's getting rich off of extrajudicial confinement. At least not in this small world. Maybe in a larger world there are, but yeah, these are strange zealots.
We have Leonard Debs was the man that was wrongfully accused by Hastings, but he doesn't come up. So there's a lot of names that pop up in the blacklist, and they're kind of just there for like, all right, on to the next thing. So,
Yeah, get the phone book out. We need another name for this character.
But then they go to a prison book depository.
Yep.
Looking for Frank Gordon, who lives in the
Book
basement.
depositories where all the best things in American history happen.
Which made me think for like, it's like, oh yeah, I guess you need like how many book depositories are there? Like who works there? And it's like, just suddenly had like another angle on like the JFK assassination. It's like, well, why did Lee Harvey Oswald look at the books depositories? Purely, I almost accidentally keep saying book suppository.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds painful.
But
you
yeah,
don't want to be Easter in the works of Shakespeare. Well, I mean, actually, okay, let's just sidetrack here. Like Oswald worked at the school book depository for the public schools.
Yeah.
So that's where the books went, when they weren't being used and cycled in and out. But before that, he had a job where they developed the secret film from spy satellites, which is of course the job you give to a former like Russian defector that renounced his citizenship. Like nothing suspicious about that. But yeah, as he became closer to being the guy who killed Kennedy, the prestige of his jobs went down and down and down correspondingly. So it's yeah, but don't look into it. You're just being a conspiracy.
um, yeah, so they're looking for Frank Gordon. He lives in the basement of the book depository, which is just weird. It's
Yeah.
basically you get down there and it's basically like the stage for a serial killer film.
Yeah, book depositories in the American zeitgeist now are is like, oh, that's where the weirdos hang out. And he actually like just lives in a cot in a basement with like a sterno stove or something. It's like, oh, this is a guy on the fringe of something.
And Wrestler finds a light that barely works because that builds the tension.
Yeah, because
It's
why
like,
would a
shouldn't
federal agent have a flashlight?
yeah, yeah. We've probably literally seen him have his own flashlight in other episodes, but they should decide here like we didn't think to bring a flashlight.
Probably has it on the front of his gun.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
start pointing the gun around. What is that? It's my flashlight.
It's my Surefire. It's awesome, right? He's
Yeah, $500.
making
Costs more than the gun.
just like suddenly texts out about his guns and stuff.
Yeah, these stupid things. By the way, it doesn't work.
What do you mean?
Oh, I have a Surefire flashlight right here.
Oh, okay.
It's like a really old one. It's like 12 years old.
Oh, yeah, I have one that's like really small and it's super bright and it has a laser on it. I'm not sure if it's Surefire. It might be Surefire. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, like a Wrestler's looking around, and then Frank pops out of the darkness and gets the drop on Wrestler. And then Liz shoots as Frank runs away, and then we cut to commercial, and then we cut back, and it's like, he got away.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird scene that built tension for nothing. And
Well, I mean, it's for the commercial break. It's like, stay tuned.
yeah, I get it. I'm watching it without commercials, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's just like, I was firing gun into a prison, huh? Okay, good.
I mean, this time it was Liz that fired, so.
Yeah, at least it wasn't Wrestler, like just pulling on a Uzi.
Yeah, Liz has to get her numbers up so she can compare it to Wrestler.
Yeah.
And we're talking to Cooper, and then like his whole Afghanistan past comes up, and like among the judges' files, because like the Frank had a bunch of files there.
Yeah.
And Frank is also previously he was wrongly incarcerated, but not officially. But so when he got out, he started working for the judge, and so he gets the messages through the books that are going in back and forth between the prison and the depository.
Yeah.
And then we have Alan Ray Rifkin, who's about to be executed. Liz is looking for any wrongdoing in the case, and whether it's like whether she's looking for whether Rifkin's like looking for revenge, or if there's actually like he has legitimate cause for innocence. And Rifkin says that Cooper beat him up in order to get a confession by order of U.S. Attorney Thomas Connolly.
Yeah, there were more of these references again. Back to the Kennedy assassination. Connolly was shot also that day.
Oh.
Governor of Texas. Yeah, all these thoughts all matching up.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice this. There's probably a bunch. I noticed the depository thing, but maybe there's a lot more JFK references in this episode.
I could just be totally talking out of my ass too. I just know these names.
A lot of times it's like you need to quickly put together an episode. It's like you're gonna grab a lot of framework that people are gonna be familiar with, and then like sometimes it works out.
Yeah, makes it's like the genius and subtlety of all this.
I mean, like one of the best episodes that was just a Die Hard ripoff, but but they're able to use their own internal dynamics to make it work as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Now the Rifkin, by the way, it's based on something that really happened. As far as some sniper went nuts and started working with a jihadi and killing people in Afghanistan. That was a real thing. You can read about it, but there's a lot of like just the fact stuff, so you don't really know like who, where, what, or why.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was based on a real thing.
Um, and then we have Jolene and Tom make out back at the the teachers conference.
Yes.
Um, I don't know, would you have two teachers from a school at a teachers conference?
I don't know.
That seems like outside the budget of a school. Like, what are they learning?
Yeah.
Because like they're talking to other teachers and they're all from the same school. So either like this is like an off time because it's like winter. So I don't know. Maybe it could be Christmas break or um, they're going to a conference in Florida. It doesn't
Yeah, it
really
just seemed
matter.
like a convenient way to put those two together.
Yeah.
Like, what were they
Sometimes.
talking about this conference? Was this the critical race theory conference?
Well, I mean, like this happens, like especially when I have to write fiction too. Sometimes you're just like, I need this to happen, but then you don't like actually go through the realities of like, when would this happen? Why would this happen? Who's
Yeah.
involved? Like transportation. It's like, no, I just need these people here. um, and they get found out like they go into like I think it's the women's bathroom, and then like some kid starts walking in. And it's like because it's just a motel, but or
Yeah.
hotel. Um, but then Tom stops them. It's like we can't do this. And then Jolie gives him her room key, and that's like leading. It's like something more might happen. Um, then we cut to the judge. It's which is also like officially they're known as the Amnesty Collective, which they're about like they're against the death penalty and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like a non-profit, but then behind the scenes it's run by Ruth Kipling, and she's the judge.
Yes.
She just she has a barn she has a barn prison full of people that had wrongfully accused others.
Yeah.
Which also makes it sound like they've had like several other they got a bunch of other district attorneys and and assistant attorneys.
Yeah, they have people in there because becomes because what do they call her?
Well, they use the phrase "good night, mother," which that's what
Yeah.
gives it away. But yeah, she's just the judge, even though the judge is kind of more of an organization than really just her. So
Yeah, she's kind of the face of it, though.
yeah, and I think they said that like her husband was wrongfully accused and executed, so that's kind of like what spurned her whole mission.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what she does otherwise. She's like, I don't know, I think she was like a nurse or something smart.
Yeah.
And then like Cooper meets with Connolly, and they want to like contain the situation to try to keep the judge off of them. And then Cowboy searches Jolene's apartment, and then he finds out that she's been falling Red because she has basically pictures from all the previous episodes of Red. So she's been following him around. We still don't know exactly who she is, but or if she's working for somebody or if she has her own interests. And then we find out that Cooper admits to beating Rifkin, beating the confession out of him. So, and like I wrote, "Yay, boo!" It's like I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's like it's wrong of Cooper to beat him up, but but later on it becomes a mute like a mute point. So
Yeah, it's like okay, yeah, because it seems like it damages his credibility
yeah.
as someone who would just beat on.
Well, he's the most. I mean, like except for wrestler or even wrestler gets outside the line. At least what we're presented so far, Cooper's the most straightforward by the book guy.
Yeah,
So,
well, he's like the administrator now, so he has to be by the rules. And you think this would like, oh, it diminishes him as a person, but then you find out it's like, no, he was fine. They had to get a confession. There was a reason. There was overriding reasons beyond the fact that this guy was clearly guilty. And it's like he's not going to tell you about that because he can't.
Yeah.
So you're just going to have to just like accept his stony faced like indifference to your questions because there's a reason he's doing it. It's not because he's ashamed of beating the guy because he admitted to it. It's like, yeah, I hit him. Yeah, I beat him. It's like, oh, okay, he's admitting to it, but he's not giving any further information, which led me to believe like, oh, there's some intelligence thing going on.
Yeah.
It turns out I was right, but it wasn't what I thought it was. But yeah,
We have Rifkin's execution begins, and it kind of just happens. Like I thought there would be a delay or something, but no, he dies.
Nope.
And Cooper and Connolly are there to watch him die, and so is Ruth. She's there because she's allowed to be there as like his religious consort or something like that.
Spiritual advisor, I think, is what it was. Religious consort's a cool name, though. That should be used more often.
I don't. That's just podcast brain kicking in. It's like, what's that thing? Slam two words together.
This is my spiritual concubine.
But then after like the Connolly and Cooper going back to their vehicles and the judge just apparently, well, I don't know, they could have been knocked out, but they apparently just executed a bunch of FBI agents.
Yeah, I was gonna say like they clearly knew these guys were under threat. That's why they were investigating them. But it's like, yeah, let's go to Denny's or something. Like there didn't seem to be anyone around until a van pulled up and there were guns in everyone's faces. It's
no, they showed some FBI bodies, or at least one.
Oh, okay.
But I wasn't sure if they had.
I
killed
thought that was
FBI.
the driver of the van. I didn't know, or the truck.
Well, there was two Suburbans there. That was like their
security detail.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't remember if like, oh, they're dead or if they just knocked him unconscious or something. Because that would basically kind of like work against the
yeah, that would kind of invalidate their wantonly murder people. It's like, what are you, Rorschach? What are you doing? No, it's justice.
Red tell.
No, it's a weird justice.
Red tells Liz to talk to Hastings to get a location on Cooper. And then like Hastings doesn't talk, but he says the goodnight mother phrase. And then Liz heard that before, so she's able to put things together. And it's like, oh, it's Ruth. Let's go after Ruth.
Yeah.
Then we also have Red meets with a colleague from the Naval Academy from that day.
An admiral.
Yeah. Admiral who's like, who's apparently like on the back burner and it's like really in a bad position, apparently. Like,
yeah, I went and looked it up. Do you know what the DOJ or DOD pay grade for an admiral is, even a rear admiral? It's like about $600,000 a year.
It's awesome.
Suffer into a bag of money. Just out of curiosity, I looked it up. Like, why does this guy's life suck? Like, I don't have any real responsibilities, but yet you get paid what? Okay, great. So go play a bunch of golf and just wait for that defense contractor lobby job to come your way.
Yeah. Oh, he's divorced, Nathan, so you know.
Oh, well, that means she took everything and he's living on food stamps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the...
And he doesn't get that extra pay you get for getting married, for being married in the military.
Oh, right, yeah. Especially at the flag officer's level, I'm sure it's a ton.
I think it's $60, but I think it's across the board. I don't think it matters what you are getting paid.
Oh, so yeah, okay.
It's, I mean, if you're lower level enlisted, like, hey, $60.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah, if you play it right, man, if you just like use what's given to you, like in the military, it's like I'm just gonna stay at the barracks. I'm just gonna eat the food at the chow hall. It's like you can save a lot of money.
I'm not gonna have a car. I'm just gonna be Jack Reacher. I'm just just buy clothes at a store, or like a thrift store, and throw them away. There's
always plenty of libraries. Like, there's no need to like buy a computer. It's like or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean you can do it, and then retire in 20 years.
Yeah, and get free healthcare.
And then like drive a truck and listen to the right wing radio and all the stuff that actually goes on. Tired of these people taking handouts from the government. What? Wait a minute. Hold on.
So yeah, so we come back to the judge's barn, and they're putting Cooper in like a barn electric chair. That's
Yeah,
just
it's like a horse trough with water and some kind of like wires hooked up to a generator.
yeah, it's all
Uh,
built around a wheelchair.
yeah, and it's like wonderful. It's just shoot him. Are you gonna torture him to death with that contraption?
Yeah,
But
like
it's the shop in
technically by their own admission or their own like philosophy of an eye for an eye, they should be giving him some sort of drug induced death.
yeah, just get some like what's that ketamine. No, it's what's the stuff that everyone's dying from now?
Oh,
Fentanyl?
fentanyl, yeah.
Yeah. Just give them a hot load of fentanyl.
And then we have, but then like the Liz and the whole like the whole FBI are outside and sheriff's office, but then it becomes kind of a standoff. Well, not really a standoff. Like they immediately, it's like, hey, like we want to talk, we don't want to do anything, and then like they get Red comes in, and like when he is able to get an intelligence file from the admiral guy he talked to, and so then Red goes in there to basically offer like what's going on and why you can't kill Cooper, and like the case that just shows that like they sent in a chopper to extract somebody who was embedded. They got that guy out, and then apparently Rifkin was mad that they weren't able to kill that guy for him and his because he was a defector, so he's like working with some Afghan faction. And then because they're mad with the village, so they decided to just kill and burn the whole village down. So
Yeah. Which unfortunately is like that's not outside the pall of like believability.
no, I mean that's the what's that, the My Lai massacre? I mean that's basically what that was, but here it's with a traitor.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so basically Rifkin was guilty, and it didn't really. I mean, for like a system of justice, yes, he was wrong, but ultimately he was guilty of his crimes. And that's like where things were weird, is because like none of this evidence was brought forth in the court case, so they just kind of railroaded him to.
Well, Red had the file there, and he said, "Look, it's 20 years in prison that I have this, and 20 years in prison you see it." So it's all like classified, like it was never going to come out.
Yeah.
It was only because like they had, a deputy or a candidate for attorney general and the head of the secret FBI task force. It's like, okay, we can talk about this now because all these people are going to prison for the rest of their lives anyway. So.
Although it'll be interesting because they say they extracted what do you call that? Somebody undercover, and I wonder like they could always have that be a thread come up later on. This was the person that was undercover there because they didn't mention their name. They just said it was somebody. And so yeah, Ruth surrenders and everyone gets set free. Though we don't see like other weird shambling people saying goodnight, mother.
Yeah,
it's just kind of over with. But yeah, she says something like, "How'd you know? Like I wouldn't kill him or something like that." It's like, well, it's because you live by a code and you're gonna follow that. And like you knew, like as soon as he said something like you knew as soon as you released somebody that this whole thing was gonna come to an end. So I'm guessing like Hastings was like the first guy they released.
Yeah,
since she started this. And then we cut to Cooper and Red talking, and then Red warns of like a war's coming, but it's more of like a metaphorical secret war, not like an actual war. It's just his group versus Alan Alda's group, so and everybody in between. And then the cowboy shows Red the thumb drive that he found at Jolene's place, and it's just a bunch of pictures of him. Then we cut back to the conference, and of course they're playing Jolene, a cover of it.
I was wondering when that was going to happen.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, there was another. Was there another Connolly Cooper scene at the end?
Oh,
because I think when Red shows up, isn't Connolly there? And it's like, oh. Oh wait, no, that was no, maybe not. I mean, think of the Liz scene because that's where Liz wanted to talk to Cooper, but Connolly was there.
There was that one, but yeah.
Yeah, I wrote down, will Tom reveal himself or just have sex with her? um, and then Jolene, like, he rebuffs her advances and goes to leave, and then Jolene says that, like, Liz is Tom's target. And then Tom just kind of, like, ambiguously reveals himself. It's like, he reveals
Yeah.
himself, but, like, if you take the word of what he said, it can be interpreted, you can interpret however you want it. So, but it seems that, like, oh, Tom is definitely sketchy.
Yeah, because he says something in the end like, "Are you a test or something? Did they send you?"
Yeah, yeah.
And he says, "I love my job, my wife, because it's my job." And it's like, well, either he has kind of a weird idea about marriage, or it's like, what's he, or he knows something about what's going on in her world, and he's trying to fit into it, or he's actually some kind of weird, agent. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Red's hinted that he's bad, so, but we don't know why, because we don't know if Red's like her dad, or what his relationship with her is. So it could be just like, yeah, I don't like that guy. He seems kind of like a putz, even though it's a Serbian, dissected him in your living room, and he still seems like a bad guy.
uh, but yeah, they're kind of like playing him off as like he's just like the super method actor.
Yeah,
It's like my job is to stay close to Liz and like know things. And so it's like, well, what if I married her? What would that be like? And he's just
yeah,
like, I do love her, but I'm going to betray her once that becomes
yeah. It kind of has almost the Americans vibe.
yeah.
Like, yeah, these people love each other and care about each other, but it's all like a construct with, like, they didn't choose each other. They were chosen and they've made it work. But in the end, like, you don't know which way it's going to go. And it's like, yeah, this could be a kind of a one direction thing of that.
So I'm just waiting, like, how long? Because then Jolene's like this new thing, and like, we still don't know her background or who she's working for. And so it's like, how long till they kill Jolene?
Yeah, I'm waiting every episode for someone to come and shoot her. But
Someone's gonna kill Tom, Jolene, or Liz. And I don't.
doubt they kill Liz. She's the main
No,
character. But
I'm. It's one of those things where it's like you've seen the how many episodes she's in, so it's like, well, I'm pretty sure she doesn't die here.
yeah, all flashbacks.
For our second show, we have The Mentalist, Season 2, Episode 15, Red Herring. Original March 4th, 2010, CBS Thursday. A chef is poisoned to death during a competition, and CBI is forced to find his killer among his competitors, his estranged wife, and his ambitious assistant. Showrunner Bruno Heller, written by David Applebaum, and directed by Eric Laneuville. Yeah, Laneuville?
Novo,
Something like that.
Lanaville.
Sure. Yeah, I was like thinking about, like, I keep screwing up, or I have some weird way I say Denis. I say Villeneuve, and I decided to look up, like, I'm pretty sure there's a video of him saying his own name, and even then it's sort of weirdly ambiguous. he did.
Even the man himself. It is
Well,
artistic to say it this way.
it's like, I know it's Denis, but like you hear him say his own name, it's definitely, he starts out Ville, and then it can be Nouve or just like yeah. The extra French thing.
No, yeah,
Sometimes he hits the V extra hard, sometimes he doesn't.
yeah. It's
It's kind of like when you're like writing out your signature or something that you don't really care if it has your signature on it, so you just kind of, it's like, are those words?
yeah. Mine's exactly like that. It's just a bunch of up and down lines with a P in the middle.
Oh, I have a correction here. It's like I was talking about in the last episode. I didn't know where the Oakland Bay Bridge was, and in accordance to San Francisco, it's east of San Francisco.
East, okay.
So, but the Golden Gate Bridge is north of San Francisco, and it just goes up into a bunch of suburbs, so there's nothing up there
Oh,
except
okay.
people escaping the cost of San Francisco.
Yeah, they're just wage refugees heading to the suburbs.
And then I get up other weird stuff where there's like cities south of San Francisco. There are also just giant expensive tech cities, but they're just like more exclusive than San Francisco. They just like it's as expensive as San Francisco. They just don't have all the cool infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
So you got like your
Where's Apple at? Where's Cupertino?
I don't know, but
Well, I've gone on Zillow and like, what are houses go for where Apple's located? And it's like a house like mine's like $4.5 million.
yeah.
I was like, this is insane. Your property taxes alone would cost more than my house does, and it's my house. It's just in Cupertino. They have amazing high schools there, though. Holy shit, they look like spaceships that are about to fly up into the upper atmosphere or something.
What was that one I was talking about? Was where all the rich people live, or like, well, I guess they're all rich, but it was Palo Alto. That's just like just below San Francisco, and then below, and then like just below that is Santa Cruz, which that's where UC Berkeley is.
Okay,
so
probably a few rich people there.
Yeah. Oh, and Palo Alto, that's where Stanford is. So
yeah. Yeah, it's probably a good zip code. Till the earthquake.
Anyways, yeah, we're at a Napa Valley cooking contest.
Yeah, this is a very bi-coastal episode. This is like, the asshole chef people. Like, yeah, those are all on the east and west coast. Like, I don't think there's a Midwest like asshole chef. Is there?
Well, I guess Paula Dean's Southern, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not like.
Well, I'm pretty sure Chicago probably has a bunch of like famous.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. Chicago. Yeah,
yeah, just major
part
cities.
Of the Midwest.
Yeah.
When I think of Chicago, I just think of people like doing TikToks and being shot randomly from cars. That's what I think of in Chicago anymore. Because that happens. I'm not making that one up.
Also have character actor watch here. We got John Polito as Bertram Duesterberg.
Yes. They almost named him douchebag. It's like they came real close. What's his name? Bertram Douchebag. Duesterberg. Has all the sounds of the word douchebag in it, but they moved it around.
And John Polito is definitely a guy like you'd be like, oh, that guy. And like, I know sometimes you say like these characters have been in hundreds of things, and usually that's like, oh, they've been in 108 things, which is a lot. This guy's literally been in like almost 236 things.
Yeah, he's a working actor.
Believe he died a few years ago, but still did over 200 things.
Yeah, but he's 16. Yeah.
We have Jeffrey Barge, who's like starting to present some dish he made, and he looks sickly, and then he falls over dead. Well, I wasn't sure if he was dead or not, but then they cut back, and CBI is coming in to do the case, and they're like, well, we don't even know if it's a murder yet. But apparently they're doing this case as a favor because one of these chefs' dad is a senator.
Yeah, it's Julia St. Germain. That's the husband and wife National Public Radio chef team in this. Her dad is some like state's attorney or some big shot in California politics.
Yeah, I believe he said senator because like there's a pretty interesting moment later on where it's like that would be huge on the news, and they're just kind of like that happened weird. We have a coroner shows up from earlier in the season. He's back, just kind of being like weird and distrustful of Jane, and then Jane just like opens up the dead body's mouth, and it's like that looks weird. It's like he's been poisoned. We're on the case.
Yep.
We found out Jeffrey was poisoned by ricin. Which they mentioned early on that it's like made from castor beans. So you just like crumble it up or something.
Yeah, it's famous. I think Breaking Bad was they did that. And also they caught a bunch of guys in
this is pre-Breaking Bad.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, I know that like the ricing was that goes back to when they found all those guys in London that were just like had a basement just full of castor beans, and they were making ricin by the pound, and they were gonna like poison a bunch of people in London, but they got caught. They said if they'd like done even half of what they wanted to, they'd killed 5,000. They killed more people and died on 9/11
Jesus.
because they would just gone. They would have given the rice into all kind because all these guys worked at restaurants and stuff because they were like immigrants or something. And you know, it's a certain variety of people sometimes do crazy things for God or whatever. And it was part of that crew. And yeah, they worked in all these restaurants and stuff. They're just going to poison all the restaurants in one day. And they can't save you if you get ricin poisoning, by the way. It's going to kill you. It's terrible. But they always say it comes from the shells of castor bean. And I guess that's true as far as it goes, but don't look it up on the internet, guys, unless you want to knock at the door like, hey, we need to talk to you. What are you doing with your castor beans? Because it is a wildly effective poison. And the thing is, it's irreversible. And once you get it in you, it kills you in like 12 hours. So these guys were going to hit every restaurant in London that they could with this stuff. But they caught them, so it ended up not happening.
Yeah, there's some weird, like, vegetables and plant or fruit stuff I learned about. Like, I saw, like, it was a post on Reddit about, like, this is what a cashew nut comes from.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, it looks like a pepper, and then but it's a fruit, and then the cashew's on top, and apparently, like, it's the top of a cashew before it's roasted is basically full of the same kind of like chemicals that like you get from poison ivy.
Yep.
And so if you don't roast them, then you're eating like you're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah, your throat's gonna swell shut because you're eating poison ivy chemicals.
But I always thought that like the weirdest thing is like, do they do anything with the fruit? Because like, yeah, we have tons of cashews here, but like we do nothing with the nobody has a cashew fruit. But they say they use it with like cocktails down there, and they said it's pretty good, or at least when you throw alcohol on it, I guess everything's good. So
yeah, everything's good with alcohol on it. And a cashew tree is more like a ground cover than it is like a proper tree. So the biggest one in the world, I think, is like 100 miles long. The longest, it's in Brazil or something, because they can't survive in this climate. And there's all kinds of different cashews, but yeah, they're a weird looking thing. The cashew fruit, it's like, that's what a cashew nut comes from? It's like, yeah, that little foot sticking out. It's like,
And then the other weird one I know about is I can't remember what the plant's called. But like in Africa, they basically built like this super plant that you could grow anywhere, and it was very resilient to like anything, like weather, sun,
drought
whatever.
resistant. Yeah.
But like the downside to it is like if you don't cook it, you're ingesting cyanide.
Yeah, there's always there's positives and negatives. Well, remember they made that special like. Oh, because this was the World Health Organization, the UN, and of course American and European food scientists. They made this thing called plumpy nut. It was for basically to drop to people or give to people in places where there was just low amounts of food. But it was like peanut butter, but with like 4 times the calories. It was just massive, and it was a good thing. Like it kept people alive for a long time. But I guess you really get a taste for it because it's basically like. It described to me as the guy who was doing a thing on it is it tastes like peanut butter with brown sugar like whipped to a like a fine froth.
It's like you're basically eating Nutella.
Yeah, essentially you're eating Nutella, but I guess it's really good. And once you get a taste for it, if things move back to a normal food situation, people still want it. Oh, everyone will weigh 500 pounds in 2 years. Like it's almost too good to be true because. It's made to get people through times of low protein and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's kind of stabilized in the world. Now that's going to change rapidly in the coming years. But for now, and it's like, oh, we got to get people off this stuff because it's like, once you get a taste for it, you love it. Because it's like, oh, I eat this and I feel relaxed and good because your body has enough food sustenance now to carry on, whereas you were not living in that situation before. But then you get into this thing like, it's kind of like with Mexico, how like the other countries are starting to beat us in obesity now. And it's like, oh, we're not number one anymore because like we don't have lard and stuff in our cooking. And like the more expensive food gets in third world countries, the more animal fat and sugar and other cheap things they'll add to it. And all of a sudden, everyone's fatter than us. And it's like, oh, we're not number one anymore. But don't worry, America's always been resilient when it comes to
Also,
it.
Mexican food is incredibly tasty. So
Yeah, it's great. But the thing is, when food gets more expensive, they just add animal fat
yeah.
and byproducts to it. We don't do that here. We just let the costs go up because we're not living in the third world situation yet, not yet. But
uh, we
kind of funny. Food.
we have a side crime of who stole the truffles, and Joe catches who stole the truffles. It was like the French cook or whatever.
Yeah,
It's not really. I don't know. This episode's good at like it's a good whodunit episode. It's like
yeah,
you can look at anybody, and it's like they could have done it, and so it's a good that thing. Because I was making a lot of like guesses here about who could have killed them like early on, and it ends up being not that. Well, I mean, it's like I was guessing everybody killed it, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be right eventually. So like I wasn't really. So it was actually harder for me to guess about this episode because like realistically anybody could have killed them.
yeah. Everyone had a motive.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's the asshole chef club. So like everyone's a jerk. Like you don't like any of these people. Um, and
um,
the one lady you do like is like, oh, okay, well she's like really bad. She's like bad, 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 bad.
um, Jeffrey was separated from his wife, and Kevin, the brother, shows up, and he's very defensive about his brother. So that's why I wrote he probably did it then.
Yeah.
So he's the least likely, and he's introduced like suddenly. I forget. Yeah, it's Abigail, the wife. It's who's it played by?
Diana Meyer.
Dina Meyer.
Dina Meyer. Sorry, not Diana.
Yeah, her most famous thing. She was in Starship Troopers.
Okay. I thought she looked familiar. She has the weird eyes, crazy eyes.
Yeah. She's like the one that's like, what's his name? Johnny was like probably should have been with, and then she
Yeah, she's like the
tragically
tough
died.
chick.
Yeah, she's the tough chick. Yeah.
She was because he was really in love with the other one, who was the model or whatever, and she became like the pilot.
Yeah.
And he wasn't any good at math, so he became like a ground soldier or whatever in that world. And he had a relationship with this girl who was also a ground soldier, and then she gets killed. I think she gets killed. Yeah, she gets.
Yeah,
killed.
yeah. She tragically dies. Probably saving them somehow. I can't remember.
It's still a wonderful movie.
Yeah.
Like, so ridiculous.
We'll cover it eventually on the Verhoeven Effect.
Great movie about fascism. Yes, we do need to cover that on the Verhoeven.
We're eventually going to cover a Verhoeven, Paul Verhoeven movie.
So
We're going to start from the beginning of when we can. So I believe it's, what's it like? Blood and what is it? Crap, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways.
Well, a couple of them we've already done on another show. So
Yeah, but we can do them again.
yeah, definitely do them again.
But there is he has a catalog that extends before that, but they're all like Danish films, and none of them are streaming anywhere. But you can see like the subject matter. It's a lot of kind of like outsiders and like sex workers and stuff like that, and how it all comes together. It's like, oh, he was always about making movies about like their like how it fits into a society and what society does to them and how they react in front. It's like, oh, he's been doing that forever. It's not something new.
Yeah.
Because I forget, somebody was saying like, Paul Verhoeven, like you think of him as like kind of almost as an action director because of the movies he's made. It's like, no, he was just some weird indie guy that could finish making a movie, and they hired him to do RoboCop. So, anyways, we have Rigsby is testing the hotel room for ricin. The room is trashed, but like Jane picks up on like, oh, Jeffrey did this. This wasn't somebody that was looking for something after the crime. Jeffrey did
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is how he lives.
it. Because he picks up on that he's an alcoholic, and that because in a previously seen his brother said he was in recovery, so it's like, all right, well, if he's an alcoholic and he's in recovery but he's relapsing, he's gonna hide his booze, and so he finds like a bottle of gin stashed in the toilet.
Yeah.
um, and then so when Rigsby tests that, it's like a test positive for ricin, so they have the method of how he was killed, or at least the delivery vehicle for it. Jane does some like, is it Hercule Poirot? Isn't that the detective from the?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he does some of that stuff. He has like everybody in a one room, and he's like accusing everybody of the crime. First he accuses Hannah Diaz of the crime, and she says she got drunk with him, but and gave him the gin, but she didn't poison him. And then we go back to like, I think it's the next day, and they're at no, I forget his Jeffrey's like restaurant, and that's where we meet Eliza Green, and she's like the super sous chef that she hasn't gone off on her own yet. She's too valuable to let go. She seems straightforward, but she's also weird and suspicious. And then like as Lisbon and Jane are going to their car, Eliza gets like the restaurant money snatched from her, and then Lisbon just opens up the door and knocks him out, and then it's Jeffrey's brother who stole the cash.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird scene.
Yeah. And then like Lisbon's interrogating him, and she's like, Kevin wants to cut a deal to help solve his brother's murder. And Lisbon's like horrified by that. It's like, this is your brother, right? You want this solved, and you also want money on the side. It's like, you're a horrible person. Then he points at Horlick, the loan shark, who claims the murder of Jeffrey as intimidation, but could be disambiguous too. So we,
That seemed too much on the nose with the sleazy loan shark that owned a head shop,
yeah.
same town, and
And also where that this where Eliza she failed at starting a new business because she couldn't get a liquor license. And then this is where you have Van Pelt and Rigsby go to the pot store looking for Horlick, which is this is 2010, so that's, I know California, it's been around there forever, but like probably early instance of like a head, well, I guess headshot's been around, but an official thing, a medical marijuana dispensary.
yes.
They talk to Horlick. He seems sinister, but probably not guilty.
Yeah, he looks like who's the guy that they made him look like who's the weird film director with the pencil mustache? What's that guy's name? John something.
John Waters?
Yeah, they make him look like a kind of a John Waters type character. Like he looks strange.
Yeah.
And I figured, well, this guy's obviously not guilty because he looks completely like, oh, yeah, this is kind of sleazebag pot dealer / loan shark that would kill people. But it's like he pointed out, why would I kill someone who owes me money? You don't collect money from a corpse. And it's like, yeah.
Can you remember like a fiction where the loan shark actually did kill a person?
No, I can't, because that doesn't make sense. I've seen fictions where they like stab people's hands with knives and beat people up. Like, hey, you better pay me next Friday or else. But yeah, like killing the mark doesn't ever make sense. The only reason organized criminals kill you is if you're going to talk to the cops or you really stole a lot from them and they know they're not going to get it back.
But then they find out that Jeff was having an affair with a married person, and it was Julia who was having an affair with Jeffrey, and Julia is one of the chefs in the competition who is also working with her husband in the competition. Are they working together, or are they like just separate chefs entries, but they're just there
I thought
together?
they were together because they were introduced as
oh, okay,
when Duesterberg introduced them. Like for public radio, our own it was some
Oh,
weird
okay.
intro like that. Yeah.
Um, and then Julia was poisoned and falls over dead in the interrogation room. Um, and then, well, yeah, like Jane's hanging out with the chefs while they're apparently still working on the competition, and Julia was going to make like lunch for herself, and like Jane was about to try it out, and then she's like, "You should try it with this pepper," and then everybody in there is like, "No, it's too hot. It'll like." It's like nobody wants that. It's the hottest pepper in the world, and then just through a series of comedic events, Jane doesn't get to try the food, but ends up killing her later on. So,
Yeah.
in the interrogation room, oh yeah, then you figure out this is where Julia's a senator's daughter. So like it's like the next day or moments later, and Lisbon is like freaking out because like everyone's saying like, is she straightening? Like, and everybody keeps walking and is like, oh god, is she straightening? So it's like her trying to put things together because she's now like, well, we just had a senator's daughter die in our interrogation room.
Yeah.
This is not gonna be good. Which again, this thing got just like shoved to the side, but this should be front page news almost immediately. But now they have it like Arliss is the main suspect. That's her husband because he has like the most to gain because like he's gonna get a bunch of money from her death and because I guess her dad would have money, she would have money that inherited from him, and also whatever life insurance thing they had. So but also he seems to be like not too worried that his wife just died, but as we find out, like the whole cook profession, it's very kind of one track mind people that can only worry about one thing at a time. So they just compartmentalize and shove things off to the side while they're still working.
Yeah.
Which every fiction about chefs and stuff like that seems to be true. They are seem to be very crazy people who are very focused, but incredibly disagreeable too. Seem to be like good at their jobs, but terrible at life. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then Jane and Lisbon talk to Abigail, and this is where Jane figures out that she's pregnant, and that's why they had like an extra big fight between her and Jeffrey. And then they find castor beans in her garage, and so they start to take her in. But then they go back to the competition, and Jane creates a distraction fire so you can spike the food with the extra spicy spice or whatever.
Yeah.
Just spice. And then like they serve the food, then everyone's like coughing because it's too hot. And this is where Jane says like, yeah, put some of Julia's spice in here. And then that's where Eliza starts to get like worried, and it's like, we got to go to the hospital right now.
Yeah.
It's like we've been poisoned. And then like Jane uses this like moment, like when she's like kind of weak and fearing death, is like, oh yeah, you poisoned them both, didn't you? And she's like, yes, let's go get the antidote. It's like, you're all fine, I switched it. But I don't know, it's like it's a pretty good scene where they interrogate Eliza, and she like says why she killed them, and it's like it doesn't like make it okay, but like you basically see like why she'd be driven to that, because like it's like basically spent her whole life trying to do this thing, and like it gets squashed because from petty people who can't live under you, you have to live under them.
Yeah, because essentially she wanted to start a restaurant because she's like their under chef, and she couldn't get a liquor license. She couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, because the senator's daughter had that quashed, and then of course
because she was having an affair with Jeffrey, and so he asked her a favor of that because Jeffrey's a drunk and can't run his restaurant right, but basically Eliza's the only thing keeping it together.
Yeah.
And so that's why Jeffrey had Julia do that is because he can't imagine at the moment like doing anything without her because she's basically keeping everything together, and so she, rightfully was resentful of that, but then
Yeah, because
then
initially I thought it would be like, oh, they were having an affair also,
yeah,
and it's like, oh no, she actually wasn't. But she got screwed over by him anyway, and it was kind of like, yeah, just a bunch of rotten people got poisoned. It's like, well, okay,
yeah.
you shouldn't indiscriminately poison people, but yeah, that
And
was
then
kind of I liked about this episode. It
yeah,
was like, well, yeah, that's terrible, but like it's not like a kid got killed or something.
yeah,
But he could have, because you're just putting poison in
yeah, yeah,
random things. It's like anyone could have. I mean, Jane could have gotten, you know,
yeah,
poisoned in the early on.
um and then we have Lisbon like moves on to talking to Abigail, who like they're letting her out, and she's rightfully angry that they took her in and was accused
Yeah.
of murdering, and because Jane planted the castor beans.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then like Lisbon's apologizing for that, and then Abigail says, "Tell Mr. Jane he's a mean, irresponsible sadist." And then also like and like this is like clever, like moves. This is like Lisbon moves through all these scenes, and they're all pretty good. And but Lisbon bonds with Abigail about living with an alcoholic, and this is basically we're kind of like, oh, her dad was an alcoholic, right? So, and we also have Jane was overhearing the whole conversation. He seems to be somewhat visibly have a guilty conscience, but he can kind of put that to a side.
Yeah.
He's still he got the job done, but and he'll move forward. But at the moment, he feels somewhat guilty for using her as a pawn. But he'll continue to do that. That's his thing. So.
Murder investigation, where her husband died.
Yeah.
The father of her child died from horrible poisoning. But then he also is kind of like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it's like, she told me to say you're a horrible sadist, and he's like, yeah,
that's accurate.
I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm not gonna spar over that.
And then the last thing is like Jane leaves, and then Lisbon like basically is it's like, oh, I've had a rough day, like I should drink some alcohol, but she doesn't drink the desk alcohol. So
yeah, desk whiskey. Famous desk whiskey.
So yeah, I thought that was a pretty decent episode.
Yeah, it kind of I let you tell most of the story, because for me it sort of drifted that middle part where it was sort of a lot of back and forth. There was some important things going on, but I kind of like tuned out almost. And in the end, it all tied up, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I did like this episode." Because it seemed like there was almost there was an uneven flow to this almost.
Yeah, I
and
like
the
used
middle sort of died off.
Well, sometimes like this, sometimes the episodes that have a lot of motive switching, that's the ones I don't like because it's like it just ends up being improbable. But I was okay with it here because like they basically literally have the table full of people who are like probable suspects, and then the one who's not at the table is the one who did it. So that's kind of interesting. But I thought it worked well enough. I didn't was okay with the flaws it had. So so that was a pretty good standard episode of The Mentalist. And for our third show, we have Miami Vice, Season 2, Episode 15, One Way Ticket. Original air date, January 24th, 1986, NBC Friday. A district attorney is killed at a wedding for getting too close to a French-Canadian drug lord that's operating in Miami. Since the victim was a close friend of the criminal's lawyer, Sonny tries to make the lawyer do something about it. Showrunner Michael Mann, written by Craig Bolleton. Yeah, me. And directed by him.
Yeah.
I think, there's not really many written and directed by episodes of Miami Vice. And he doesn't come back and work on more Miami Vice episodes, but that's kind of. But I thought this was a pretty good episode. Although it seemed kind of weird. There's a lot of like lingering
Oh yeah.
airplane shots and stuff like that. And I felt like,
Immediately, I was thinking, it's like, how much did they pay to lease that plane?
yeah, yeah.
And they're just like, we're gonna squeeze every drop out of the $10,000 or whatever we paid to lease this plane.
Yeah.
Because boy, there was a lot of that was weird.
And also, yeah, I felt like there was like more like story details you could have thrown in. It's like we don't need all this montage of the
Yeah, this
airplane.
is a cool thing. This guy can fly a plane around, but it's kind of weird.
Yeah, we start. We have an '80s Miami wedding. Crockett and Tubbs are there. Then we have John Hurd, who's Larry. We'll find out is in the
Yes.
crowd. Yes, yeah. I don't know. We saw Cutter's Way like I don't know, like last year, and we saw like, oh, this guy's like a really interesting character actor, and so this is kind of like another dramatic role, but he's probably most famous for being the dad in Home Alone. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and he kind of did a lot of those roles later in his life, where it's just like, I'll just be that middle management guy. so so it's here he's like very reserved, but he's still pretty good in this episode. Um, we have some guy in the bathroom. He's putting on a disguise and loads a pistol. We have Jan Hammer as the wedding DJ.
Yes, that was interesting to see him in real life.
um, and then the disguise guy is like serving champagne throughout all the wedding guests. And then Crockett and Tubbs come and say goodbye to. He calls him Robert. I went back and looked at it. His name's Richard Langley. Is Robert ever like short for Richard or something? Or do you think they just got his name wrong and used the shot?
I mean, yeah, people. It's those Dick and Charlie names like that. The British do that a lot too. That's what I call them. It's like, oh, someone's name is one thing, but they call him like Rick or, so it could be like, oh, this was just the name he went by, but I'm willing to bet your theory is like, oh, they just flub the lines and are like, oh, screw it. He's going to get shot in 5 minutes anyway. Yeah.
And then, yeah, so Richard Langley's the father of the bride, and so they're saying like, "Hey, like, congratulations, like, we're gonna go," and they're like, "All right." And then Larry's standing by him because Larry and Richard are friends, but Crockett knows Larry, and they like kind of scold Larry, or he
Yeah.
scolds Larry. um, and then the disguise guy pulls out his gun and he shoots Robert, and then I wrote probably a bunch of other people, and then he gets away on a boat.
I guess the two girls standing next to him were killed
Yeah, yeah, we find
because
out
they're like
that later.
twins,
Yeah.
which comes up later.
Um, and then yeah, but then and then Crockett's like giving like a eyewitness statement to homicide, and this is where he tells Tubbs about his history of Larry, and um, Larry's some attorney, and some rookie named Graney got killed because they were like doing undercover work, and so they shot him in the face because like they got too sketchy, or yeah, just got too itchy with the trigger fingers, and the gangbangers got off on a mistrial because Crockett beat them up for a testimony. So,
Yeah.
um, which understand, but again, that's why you don't do that.
Yeah. It's just let them. Yeah.
You saw him shoot him in the head. You're the witness.
Yeah, they're
You
gonna
have him
in
to
Florida.
custody.
They're gonna burn. It's Florida. They love their death penalty there. So
And then yeah, so Assistant State Attorney Richard Langley died, and this it's Crockett it's Castillo having a meeting with the rest of Vice, and this is where he like lays this out, and the two sisters died, so it's two daughters, or no, well, no, I guess they were bridesmaids, weren't they?
yeah, they were twin sisters,
Yeah.
bridesmaids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we have John Faber, who's some French Canadian drug dealer.
Yep.
That he just gets
And it's a
mentioned.
whole different class of villains in this show.
Yeah.
It's like the Quebec mob down in Florida slinging heroin or whatever. I think it was, yeah. Something.
And then we have we learned the name later. The name looks like Sagat, but it's like pronounced like Sago.
Yeah, Sego, something like that.
And he's some like gruff voiced, unhinged French Canadian mobster.
Yeah, really unhinged too, like insane. Like,
I
I'm murdering I'm murdering a prosecutor at his wedding or at his daughter's wedding in like
yeah.
South Florida with a couple vice cops there too. That's a great disguise though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like mustache, hair, like he looks like Mexican, like he put darkening stuff on his skin. It's like you'd never know it was him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's I didn't write down the guy's name. He's like, because he does some stuff. He's actually was in something recently. He was in like some recent seasons of the Vikings where he's like in 20 episodes. He was playing like some king or something.
Oh, okay.
So he's done recent work.
His name's Lothar Blutow.
It kind of looks like almost like Native American.
Yeah,
Kind of. I mean,
yeah, he does.
It's Canada, so there are also Native Americans up there. So,
He's also like yeah, because he is where's hold on, he's actually from there too.
yeah, he's from like Montreal.
He's from Montreal. And French people kind of have a different look.
Yeah.
Some of them do, some of them don't.
But yeah, he's like Saigo apparently like, or Sago, or maybe that's on purpose. Maybe they want his name to sound like he's saying psycho.
Close enough.
Sago has seemingly pulled this hit on his own accord. He wasn't told to do it. He just
Yeah.
like, I'm going to impress my boss by killing a U.S. attorney.
Yeah, I didn't know if he was trying to impress anyone or he was just like this crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this needs to be done. So
I mean, he did plan it, but yeah, it's still
it's like the ballsiest thing you could imagine. And he's doing this with a handgun too. It's not like going in there with an AK or something.
I think he's like he goes into some like restaurant. I think it's the guy he talks to is like Marcel, maybe. I think.
Yeah.
And like he gets really, and Marcel's like, why did you do that? Like this is nuts. You need to get out of here and like leave town. And then he's like, it's like, oh, you think you're a big man? And he's like holding a knife to his eye, or no, fork to his eye.
Yeah. Like he's gonna like fork his eye out.
Yeah. And then Zito and Switek like arrest him, not necessarily for trying to stab the guy, but that's what they pull him off for. But then ultimately they just like he has drugs on him, so they pull him in for drug possession.
Yeah.
And then we cut to like the interrogation room, and Larry's there, and he comes in to represent Sago.
Of course. Representing the guy who shot his friend at the wedding.
Yeah.
He and the two vice cops were also at. But it's TV.
Well, he doesn't. Yeah, I mean that's convenient, but also he doesn't know that yet. It's the only thing where he's like suspicious of it is that Sago said something like, yeah, that's too bad that guy was shot. And like in twins too, it's like twins are always unlucky. And Larry's like, how do you know they were twins? And it's like, I said so in the papers. Like, no, they just said they were sisters. They didn't say they were twins. And so it's basically where Larry picks up like, oh, this guy did it.
Yeah. Maybe I heard it on the radio.
Oh yeah, and also Sago's just mad that he's not out of there already. He's like, you can just make this drug possession go away, right? And then Larry's upset and conflicted because the people he represents murdered his friend. So.
Yeah.
And then Larry drives his yellow Ferrari. Do you know what kind of Ferrari that is? Did you pick that up?
I do actually. It's a it's the only real Ferrari in the episode. Damn it, what is it called? It's a Daytona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a 365 Daytona GTS.
Okay.
It's a real Ferrari too.
Wasn't the Crockett's? Isn't that supposed to be like a Daytona Spider or something like that?
Yeah, the Spider. Yeah, because I forget what that designates. It's convertible and something else.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Crockett's would be faster in the real world if it wasn't just a Corvette.
Well, Larry drives his yellow Ferrari to his private jet.
Yeah.
And he flies it, so that's kind of cool. It's like he's not making somebody. He's not just flying somewhere. It's like he does
He's
it himself.
flying his own plane
And like
for like an hour in the episode.
yeah, it does does his own checks on the plane and stuff like that.
They
Even though
walk
he
around.
has a mechanic, but he does the checks on that. So
Yeah, well, you want to make sure those steering surfaces actually work.
yeah.
And actually, I was wrong about that. They did at least one plane for this because the plane they show in the separate scenes, if you know planes, they're all different, but they look close enough. But yeah, so I
well,
guess
I thought there's some parts I thought they were just using like a model airplane and just kind of like had a camera pointed up at some clouds because there's like, and I think it's just I think it was just weird how they were shooting it where they were like the plane the camera plane and the plane they were shooting were like going at the same speed, so it almost looked like just a toy hovering in some clouds. But I think it's a real shot. Yeah, so yeah, they show him flying for about 5 minutes. And then Crockett blows off steam at the shooting range.
Yeah, and he gets a perfect score. Sweat's pouring off of him because it's in Florida, and he's like, "I want to run it again, run it again."
Yeah,
and they show like a table of empty shell casings.
Yeah, he's got about
this 10mm handgun. Yeah. Which would absolutely be like smacking your hand with a baseball bat. But okay.
Well, I mean, technically he's shooting a 45, but it's supposed to be a 10mm.
Yeah. It says Bren 10 right on the side of the gun. You can see the gun. There's a lot of sex scenes in this show of aircraft and large firearms. And you can clearly read the plane numbers and the markings on the side of the gun.
Then we have then Crockett goes to pick up his Ferrari, and we have Tommy, who's like a lady mechanic who's the only one that works on his Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah, she talks about like how like Crockett gets a $600 bill for the Ferrari,
which would be a lot of money for a cop back then.
It's like it's like half a month's worth paycheck.
Yeah, it's.
But then she explains like, oh, that's like the cheapest I can do because I'm just like I'm over charging the rich people. And then Crockett gets a call on his Ferrari phone saying Philip Saigo killed Richard. And I wrote down probably Larry flying out to some country to leave an anonymous tip.
Yeah.
Although it ends up not being that, although it could have been the same, but like later on we find something different where it's like, oh, he could have made these calls anywhere at any time. And then Crockett I think they're interrogating Marcel to try to find Saigo. And then we have Larry talking to his ex-wife in an art gallery.
Yeah.
And he like, they seem friendly at first, but then he gives her like some statue, and she's like, this was like the hinge thing of our divorce. Like, why are you giving it to me? So this is like him giving away his worldly possessions to kind of give evidence of what happens later on. And then Crockett shows up to talk to Larry. I can't remember what they thought. He just kind of like. Basically, like Crockett wants him to like that guy killed him, right? And you represent him, and he's just kind of like, yeah, I know. And then Crockett doesn't know he's like doing anything about it, so he's just mad the whole time.
Well, also, in the real world, it would actually do him no good to even ask him.
Yeah.
Because anything like, oh, is Crockett trying to flip his lawyer? He can't do that. The evidence wouldn't be admitted. The guy would be disbarred. Like, you can't intimidate that guy. As a matter of fact, he'd just tell you to fuck off, and he's like, "I'll call the police if you come back and talk to me," because now you're trying to like interfere with the attorney-client information, which is like that. Any case your building's gonna descend. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm being cynical, but yeah. Florida law in the '80s is maybe different. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
And then we cut to Sago killing like another French, the Marcel guy. He just shoots
Yeah.
him in the bathroom. I think.
Another shower silencer killing, which the show likes.
Um,
People getting killed in the shower with silenced handguns.
and then Faber tells Saigo he needs to leave town because like the heat's too high on him, but he also wants Larry killed. Then we have Trudy and Switek following him. Is Saigo driving a Cobra? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Assuming a replica, but yes.
Okay. And then he just tells him like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave town for a bit," so they know what's up.
I'm going to buy luggage.
I need to go down.
I'm gonna go to a nice country with low prices, and he tells Trudy like, "You can come with me."
Yeah, he hits on her.
Yeah, he's just a psycho.
And then we cut to Larry flying his plane again, but we have him checking stuff, but we also have the mechanic there, so it could be like, is his plane going to be sabotaged?
Yeah, I was waiting for that plane to just like explode. Like, oh, okay.
Well, which it kind of does.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, we show like montages of him flying and being sad, and it looks like he just drives his plane into the ocean.
Literally, I'm gonna say, I would bet $100 we have 12 minutes of footage in this entire episode of this guy in some kind of aircraft. It was so ridiculous. It was like, wow, this is. I know this show takes some indulgences, but crap, this guy's just flying the hell out of this plane.
Well, I remember the one episode where like they go to last year when they go to Bamimi or in the first season, and it's a really long boat sequence, but they're playing like a cool song over it. I don't remember any of the songs they're playing over any of these sequences with the plane.
No, there's it's what's it called? I have the music pulled up here because they have a Mr. Mister song and they play Mustang Sally, and I think they have a song for the montage when he's shooting at the range. But yeah, Jan Hammer Last Flight is the one. That's all the flying scenes of that same music.
Okay.
Yeah, which is fine,
Yeah.
but it's not like up tempo or anything. It's just a lot of beauty shots of these planes flying around.
But then they cut back to like Castillo's office where they're having a meeting, and they say that there's no body was found, and so I wrote accident or suicide. It could be either.
Yeah. Well, from the way the plane hit the water, it's like you'd think the plane flew into a pool of gasoline because it hit the water, and then it was like, the typical 80s boom, boom, boom. It's like, that plane, was it full of plastic explosives and crashed into a pool of gasoline? Like, that was a violent explosion for that plane hitting the water. But they did go out of the way to make sure that, they saw the guy fueling up the wingtips. So maybe it was full of fuel.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we don't know why. We don't know if it's like, did that happen as a result of sabotage or guilt?
And then an anonymous caller comes in. He gives a bunch of evidence that will convict Saigo. Or
Saigo.
But they trace the call to some hotel, but it's just like a machine that was put there to like put out the message.
Well, yeah, it had like alligator clips from the phone in the hotel onto an answering machine onto another phone, and it was like, that seems like an elaborate setup, but okay.
Also, there's like a cat lady in the scene before they opens up the door for him, and there's like this little kitten that's just like hanging on for dear life on the lady's shoulder, and then she's holding another cat. Like she passes the cat between her and Tubbs, and the kitten like holds on the whole time. It's like, was that just one magical shot, or did they just super glue that cat to that lady?
Yeah, I felt sorry for the kitten. I was like, what's going to happen to the kitten? This is now the center of the episode for me. Because that kitten, its eyes were big. It was like this while they were filming. And I was like, oh, don't tell me they sewed it to that woman's dress with yarn or something. This is dark. I don't know how, but maybe it was just like maybe they got it in one take.
Yeah.
Because everyone felt sorry for the kitten. Come on, little buddy. The kitten's like this.
Crockett and Tubbs wait on Saigo while like Zito works on getting the murder weapon that's just like in some bank vault, or not a bank vault, but like what do you call those?
Safety deposit box.
Yeah, safe deposit
on
box.
A false name, yeah.
So they're just like waiting to get the go once they confirm the weapon. They get the call and they go to start take Sago, and like he fires a micro Uzi at him and
Yeah.
steal.
Yeah, for
And
some reason he's getting ready to get on an international plane flight, even though it's a puddle hopper, and he just happens to have like a fully automatic Uzi, small one, under his coat. It's like, was he going to clear customs with that, or just throw that under the seat?
Yeah, I didn't look at that place had custom. It looked like people are just gonna walk right onto that seaplane. Oh, that was
No, I meant
big.
when he landed wherever he ended up. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I don't know how it works down there in the islands, but
Although yeah, we do get like kind of the full like the seaplane landing and then pulling up on that tarmac, which I didn't know that's how that works.
I didn't either. I was cool. I was like, oh wow, that's neat.
Yeah.
It's got wheels and floaters. Okay.
Which I think is basically this is the same plane that like the guy gets away in like the first 2 episodes of the series.
Yeah. This plane's been seen because it just got one engine, one prop. It looks like a weird, like, island hopping plane, I guess.
Yeah.
Is this what Jimmy Buffett's singing about all the time?
Well, I also looked it up. It was like these planes are cool, like, but like I haven't seen like modern ones. I'm like, do they make these planes anymore? And it's like, not really. No.
Oh. Built airports in those places and stuff, and they can
Yeah.
fly 400 people on one plane instead of, for half the amount of fuel, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I always thought that was a cool idea of like, oh, you land this plane in water because it's like as much runway as you need.
Yeah, there's literally 70% of the world is your runway. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to land it in rough seas, but
yeah.
if you had to.
Well, see, like I've never seen like a jet one, so there's probably a reason they have like a propeller rather than a jet engine because you're like getting that close to the sea. You probably intake the seawater and destroy everything. It's probably why they don't make them because the seawater probably does awful things to those planes.
Unless you're like flying in an chronoplan.
Yeah, he gets on a boat and runs away, and we have kind of like pretty just like cut from Crockett's chasing in his Ferrari the boat, and we have some boat cops show up and they're giving chase, but they're not as fast as Saigo's boat.
Yeah.
But then like they get another boat that pulls in front of them, and then they kind of stop him under a bridge, and then Crockett jumps off the bridge and then like just kind of arrest him. There's some cool, like he goes under these bridges and like he looks like one of them he's just like perfectly standing up, and it looks like, oh man, that's so close to him just killing himself.
Yeah, it's like that guy's badass. He doesn't care. And then the next one, you see him kind of get down.
Yeah.
It's like you realize when they shot the first scene, it's like, sacre bleu, I almost lost my head. I better lean down a little bit. Or it probably wasn't him. It was probably the stunt man.
Yeah. But yeah, so Larry, and then they go back to Tommy the mechanic, and Larry left a bunch of stuff in his car. It's just evidence to convict Faber and Saigo.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, the other thing where the lawyer just gives up his clients.
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess that's not admissible as evidence. 1, and 2, he's not going to be a lawyer anymore.
But this is where like he suggests that like Larry has to be still alive. Like this can't be just like coming in automatically. He had to have done this.
Yeah, this was part of a plan.
Yeah. And they talk to his ex-wife again, and they get wind of it. There's some island that Larry liked, and so he's probably there. And so they go to the island, and it's somewhere around Bimini or whatever, and Larry's alive and fishing.
Yeah.
But Crockett wants him to testify against his own client. And then like he's like, all right, Larry just kind of gives up. And he's like, all right, I'll get my stuff. And then the Crockett's like, it's like, this doesn't make us even. And he's like, I know, I just did what I thought. I just did the most right thing I could. And this is where like that's kind of like it's almost like a parody of itself, because Crockett goes, to hell with it. You want to be dead? Bang, you're dead. And he just makes finger guns, and it freeze frames on it's like finger gun.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird like, huh? And then all of a sudden like, okay, well.
Because so many episodes end on like somebody's about to be shot, and here it's just it feels like that was like they did that intentionally. It's like we're making fun of our own meme.
Oh, and by the way, John Hurd died like last year.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I saw it's like, yeah, he was
Oh, was it
recovering
last year?
from back surgery.
Yeah.
Maybe it was earlier than that.
Yeah, I thought it was like 2017. I can't remember, but yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago because we talked about him in that Cutter's Way episode. Um, yeah, I thought this was a pretty good episode of Miami Vice.
Yeah, except for the long plane sequence. Which just I just sometimes I'll watch something and for reasons only having to do with my mind, I am jarred by something. It's like, oh, okay, we get it. This guy's flying, but then it's like, oh, we're doing another scene, reverse angle. Okay, he's still flying, and then we go to like the fourth cut. It's like, wait a minute, well, are you
Well,
messing with me here? What's this all about?
this episode has enough like specific details. It's like you could go with more story, and it just seemed out of place. It's like, why are you covering? Why are you stretching? Like you don't have enough material to shoot with all these plane sequences. Like you have enough material, you can
Yeah,
add stuff.
I don't know. Maybe this was this director's vision.
Yeah. I don't know. From what I remember the Miami Vice movie, there's a lot. That's probably one of the coolest sequences in there is the plane shots. So
Yeah,
might be a Michael Mann thing. These
that
planes
could
are awesome.
love these. You got to be rich to have one of these planes. Plane is represent. This is the American dream right here. This plane represents everything good about our country and evil. It's a private jet powered aircraft. And they said like, he faked his own death by jumping out with a parachute.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that plane and looking at the door, and it's like, oh, he'd have just been, uh, you know, run through that engine like a food processor. Like, there's not. How did he clear it? Did he shut the engine down and just jump really hard? I don't know.
I mean, there's ways to do it, but yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, as you can guess, I've never jumped out of an aircraft, but well, yeah, when I saw that and saw where the door was, it's like, well, the engine's like right there. It's like it's
Yeah.
not a big plane.
I mean, I can imagine like, okay, you're like crawling out the side, like the wind starts to take you a bit, and you can kind of like crawl your way down to the bottom of the door, and maybe like release off towards the bottom of the airplane rather than like into the airplane.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's so many movies and stuff where like people just jump out of an airplane, no problem, and it's always like a Learjet.
yeah,
Because I mean that's what happened in that one episode with the guy who like faked people's DNA in the blacklist. Like that was some Learjet, and he just jumped out of it like it was nothing.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's possible. I don't know. I always assume you need specific planes, and
Yeah, well, yeah, because I think for when people do parachuting, I think like the engine's like forward of the door that you jump out of.
okay,
And even like in like paratroopers, like they're like getting shoved out the back of a C-130 so, with a static line. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do it if you had to.
yeah. I mean, the one guy that robbed the Northwest plane, what was his name? The guy, they never found him.
Oh, is it like DB Cooper or something like
Yeah, it's like that had just a walkway down the back. You could just lower and just jump off. But then people that were jump experts were like, yeah, he did it. He's dead.
that?
Lived through that. He was too high or so. I don't know what you need like oxygen for some of that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird there was a plane that just had a ramp that rolled down in the back of it. And you could deploy it while it was flying. Like you think there's like a lockout or something that's like, how you can't pull your emergency brakes now in your car if it's moving
Oh,
certain speed because there's like a safety lock. It's like, now there didn't used to be when it was just a handle. It's like you could just grab it and pull it up.
have fun.
While me and my friends did things like that, it's like, wasn't that funny? It's like, yeah, except that guy almost crashed into us. But yeah. Anyway, Miami Vice, check it out.
Well, if you like what you heard, and how couldn't you? You can find us at anchor.fm/Verhoeven Effect. You can also go to verhoeveneffect.com. It should take you to the same place. Tell me if it doesn't.
We want to know.
You can, whatever platform, podcast platform of your choice you listen to, you can rate our podcast if they allow that thing. And you can rate us whatever you want, but the only thing the algorithm listens to is is whatever the highest rating is. So Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. You can also find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory, where we have both that show and this show live and unedited. We also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/greed factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, this is Conlon.
This is Nathan.
Goodbye, America.